And welcome back to another episode of Tech Pro Unicorn Podcast. Today, you're getting a view inside the unicorn lair. We are at home in our home studio, and I am excited because I get to talk to somebody who's an entrepreneur. She's a woman entrepreneur, which is even cooler. And then we're going to talk about e-commerce and the business that she has helping folks. So I'd like to welcome Tanaha Hairston, who is the founder of Axismeta. She's a successful tech investor and business strategist who specializes in methods and tools to increase business valuation and lead generation. Over the span of about 15 years as a serial entrepreneur, she has started and sold multiple businesses in various industries, including SaaS software, which is something that everyone knows I'm passionate about, eLearning, and consumer products. She helps investors and business owners to reduce the risk of failure, be consistently profitable while doubling their bottom line without additional hiring, which is important. Her proven strategies include incorporating a comprehensive digital strategy, words near and dear to my heart, based on the customer journey, e-commerce principles, strategic acquisitions, artificial intelligence, SOPs, all with a focus on communicating to convert. So thank you for joining us here on the podcast. You have so much in your bio that I just love.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. So how did you you've only been at this as an entrepreneur about 15 years. Tell us a little bit about your journey to being an entrepreneur. What were you doing before that, and what caused you to go, this is the moment I need to just do this on my own?
Thank you. So, when I first started, I started my career as a software engineer, right? And that
Mm,
henceforth, that's my love of like data and technology. That is definitely my love language is tech. It's one of them anyways. But anyway, so I started my career there in corporate, right? And then my transition occurred because I had that change, that personal change in life that some people go through where they go through, a divorce. And frankly, that was me. And here I was going through this change of life. And, I had children. So I became an entrepreneur because of a personal reason and a personal circumstance. And I knew it would be very hard work, but I knew that I would be able to have some control over my schedule, wink, wink, if you will. So that's really how I started becoming an entrepreneur, and that was my journey. And then my foray into investing started is because, here I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my MBA. And then while I was there, I ran an angel network, and that's a medium that connects investors. Not, everybody knows it's Shark Tank without the drama, right? So we're talking to investors, we're deciding who gets to pitch, right? So there was my foray into, the investing world, because we were looking at business plans and companies, and we were deciding, right, does this one have the propensity to scale? Does this one deserve, to come back again? Does this one deserve to come
mhm.
into due diligence, right? So all of these things that we were thinking about, when we decided which companies we would have back or that would receive investment, that was my foray even into that. Since then, the principles are still the same that we've looked at with businesses, but the tools and methodologies, those have definitely progressed in
Mm.
a beautiful way. So that way, we can predict, um, you know, things within the business. So that has progressed. But the main components of it, some of the issues and the things that we looked at, those are definitely the same. But that's how I got into it. Frankly, it was because of a change of life, and then it's morphed, from that particular point. So
I love it. One of the things that you mentioned was, kind of digital strategy. Two words that I just, I spend my whole day dealing with. Digital people are trying to define what digital is, and then
yeah,
oftentimes I spend my time helping companies because they're headlong into digital without a strategy, right? And
yeah,
it's just kind of this haptic craziness that they're going through. And I'm like, can we go back to where you should have had a plan? Can we back all the way up there? Um, how important is that, like that strategy before companies just launch in and try all these technologies, right? Because they just want to buy. They want to buy this, that, and the other, and hope that maybe that swirl of stuff gets them down a path.
Right, right, right. So that's a great question. And frankly, I got into it because I lost money. I mean, that
Mm,
is the God on that is the truth. I lost money in my first entrepreneurial venture. And not on just one agency, on two, right? Because I
mm,
thought, oh, here I love to create. I'm going to create the product, I'm going to create all the operations and I'm going to focus on everything back end. And then I'm going to hire
hmm.
external, right? These agencies too, that would do what they said they would in this beautiful, well laid out proposal, that really frankly never quite happened. And the first one, I was totally self-funding myself, right? So I really had to, kind of roll up my sleeves, if you will. This was a long time ago, but I had to
Hmm.
roll up my sleeves, and everyone said, like, oh my God, you almost disappeared. And, the only thing I did was day to day maintenance of family and life. Other than that, I said to myself, you have to get down and you have to get down deep. And then over time, me and this, I found this great at the time. He was just starting, right? He now runs 10X. But
Oh
at
wow.
the time, me and him, we built my first brand, and he taught me and then I learned. And the digital world models the physical world, right? If we think about things in that way, I think it makes it so much easier.
Mm,
So as we think about the lifetime of a customer, right? And kind of here's what I would say now after all these years. If we think about how it is when we first meet somebody, right? When you first meet me, you may be cold, your hands may be crossed, right? And you're kind of on guard because you don't know me yet, right? There's not an existing relationship. That's our physical world. In the virtual world, if we're approaching someone and they don't know us, right? This is not a warm database, right? This is not an existing customer, right? This is not a former, right? We have to go through a process in order to establish a relationship, and you have to continue to nurture that relationship just in the physical world. You have to continue to nurture that relationship so that way you become and you stay a part of each other's lives. Right now, I'm really
hmm.
simplifying it, but it's the truth. At the beginning, right? And it doesn't matter if you're selling a consumer product. It doesn't matter if I'm selling a piece of software, right? I could be selling a complex technological system that I'm selling, to economists, right? If they don't know me, they're cold, right? If I'm selling a consumer product, if they don't know me, that's a cold customer. And so we're at the very first stage of that customer journey, like that inform awareness stage. Like, how is it that we're going to even get them to find out about us? And this is the first step of really marketing. So that could be a trade show in the physical world. In the digital world, it could be we bought an email list, right? We acquired, a piece of media. We established a LinkedIn outreach for B2B. We had some ads for physical product. We're on Amazon. We did some Amazon based ads. However, a customer finds out about our product or service, they're in that stage one. That's it. They're in that stage, just like when we're meeting. But if we know we want to have a
Hmm.
relationship, then we have to nurture even at that first stage. So what does that look like? Well, that looks like continual communication, right? And so in the digital world, those look like emails, those look like SMS, right? That's consistent communication, like stage one, when they find out about us, right? To get them to there, that's communication. And then when they finish there, we want to move them to where they're thinking about it, right? If you would ask someone, on a date, right, where they're considering it, you have to continue the communication to where someone's thinking about it, right? They're thinking about if they want to have that free trial or the demo to the software because it's going to solve some particular problem or bring them some enjoyment that they want. They'll get published more, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? The pain spray, it's going to get rid of their pain. It's a problem, and then if so, then they can run and have the life of their youth or whatever is in our $100 million offer statement. It doesn't matter, right? So that second stage,
Hmm.
when they're considering, right? And what does that look like? Well, that looks like more communication, but it's the physical world models the digital world. So that's just digital communication to move them to the next stage, which is where we convert them. Right. So it's when they've decided to buy our product or our service, right? They've decided to, kind of, okay, I love that trial. I'm going to buy, the full system now at $24.99. Or, I love that, webinar. I'm going to buy that for $49.99. Or I love that, that little tester that you gave me. I'm going to go ahead and buy
Hmm.
the full product, right? So and then there's KPIs. Here's how you don't get burned. This part's really, really important that I learned. Here's how you don't get burned is every single one of those stages, you establish key performance indicators, right? So stage one, that awareness stage, that has its own set of KPIs. And somebody owns those KPIs, right? At every single stage. Somebody has to own those KPIs. And then that next stage, that consideration, somebody owns those KPIs, right? I mean, I think that, programs like EO, they do a beautiful job of sharing. And then, programs like Digital Marketer, they elaborate on it, and they come up with it clearly. But these concepts are what, I learned that you have to do early on. If you're not like measuring it, I think that they enunciate it much better than I am today. But if
Hmm.
you don't have key performance indicators for each of those stages and you're not tracking those metrics from a data perspective, then you don't really know if, that's how you gauge if your marketing is working. That's how you know if there's a problem. That's how you know, okay, oh my gosh, my cost per lead has gone down. Oh, okay, great. My CPA, oh, okay, great. My CPC, my cost per click is gone. That's how you're able to kind of gauge that you're going in the right direction because there's key KPIs for each stage. So, but I had to learn that really the hard way. And like I said, since then, I've taken classes and I'm like, yes, this is what you have to do. Yes, you totally have to do this because if you don't, then there's trouble. And that's really how you can manage your team if it's internal and you can track to make sure that things are trending in the right directory for every product and service. You do this, by the way, or if it's an external, person or firm or agency, right? Even if you're kind of outsourcing these efforts. And then that's how you make sure that you're not losing, money per se, if you will, right? You hold everyone accountable, So if there's an email campaign, same, doesn't matter how they're thinking about or how they're finding out about you, right? It's, we bought an email list, right? We whatever we did, we're tracking those metrics from beginning to end to where they're like, oh my gosh, they're promoting us, they're sharing us all the way to the end of the journey. So that is one lesson that I learned really the hard way, very early on, that you have to like track those metrics throughout the journey. Otherwise, it's not going to be so good.
I love it. You said so many things that I want to circle on. One, whenever I do KPIs, right, I'm always like, before we get started, I'm always like, let's define success, right? Like, let's set those success criterias, essentially KPIs. And then I love physical models digital, because I think, especially for companies that are so used to operating in a physical presence, whether it be retail or financial or healthcare, or any industry, um, that digital presence, right? How you deal with your customers digitally. And newsflash, if you're listening and you're like, well, I don't really need a digital presence, your consumers want to be digital, right? They don't want to go shopping. They don't want, look at Instacart, right? Blowing up. They don't want to go to the grocery store. They don't want to go to Best Buy. They don't want to go to Macy's. They don't want to go anywhere, right? They want to be home with quality people, and which is not you, by the way. It's your family. It's their family. It's their friends, and so they rely on you having a digital presence, right? Or not. And if you don't, guess what? Your competitor, they have a digital presence. So where are they going to go? They're not going to go to your store. They're going to be like, oh, I usually shop here, but now I'm going to shop there because they have a digital presence, right? And that crosses industries. It crosses in healthcare where we do a lot of consulting. I tell them all the time, like consumers are getting smarter. They want the same touch points, which is why I love this physical models digital. It's such a great way to think about it, how you would treat your customers when they are in your lobby waiting for care or waiting for service, and you five-star treatment them through that. That needs to be the same experience digitally, right? If you want them to stay. And then you said, about getting acquainted and knowing your customers. So many people, when we go consult with them, don't have any idea who their customer is. They may be at a very high level. They're like, oh, our customer's she's a female, she's a mom and she's in her 30s. And I'm like waiting for the rest of it. And they're like, well, that's what we got. And I'm like, how do you market to that? Like, I don't, like, when does she get up in the morning? What does she do? How does she consume information? Is she on an iPhone or an Android? Is
Mhm.
she checking email? Does she read text messages? How does she want to be touched? And you said communication so many times throughout what you just said. It's so important to understand your customer and how they want to be communicated with.
Mhm. It's true. It's true. It's true. No, I mean, so, I have like a couple of researchers from my team because if you're going to launch a new project, right, especially if it's, like, a consumer product based product, you really want to know like their hopes and their dreams. And a lot of it
Hmm.
is out there. So like my team is not, they're not doing, in person aggregating large groups. They're scouring and they're figuring all this out digitally, like
Hmm.
literally, like they're figuring out and giving me the data, but figuring out like, how is this company viewed internally, externally? They will tell me that. How's the company viewed? What are their customers saying about them? What do their customers want? What do they don't want? What are their hopes? What are their beliefs? Like what are their values, right? I mean, they can tell me all that, and we haven't even talked to one customer,
Yeah.
and they'll give me all of that data. So yeah, you do, because otherwise, if you don't have that, that's the core of having that key offer, right? The book, the $100 million offer statement, right? That's the key of having that offer statement. And I thought it was so well written, right? If I offer you, X, right, which is what you really, 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 really want, without, all the things that you don't want, all your butts, et cetera, would you take me up on this offer? Like a simple, sales offer, and it's not even sales, right? Because we are really solving, their a problem and fulfilling like hopes and dreams, right? And whatever it is, I mean, it could even be, like we could even be talking about a doctor's office, right? And there's some new service, that we're going to build a value ladder, kind of like upsell opportunities to, if you will, value ladder, right? It could even be that. But in that alone, right, we've identified some issues and some concerns, and we're productizing some things to create a value ladder. That's also really, really important too, and over time you add consistent value, and increasing value, right, to your customer base. So definitely, I totally agree with you.
I love it. So your agency helps folks. So many folks get paralyzed, right? I mean, they have an idea, they have a concept, or they start a company, and then they're like, oh shoot, now what, right? And maybe they have minimal success, right? Maybe
Mhm.
they launch a product and they get a little sales. I had a friend and she started a bakery and then got this little contract with Starbucks, and it was kind of good. But then now what? Like, how do I keep growing? How do I make this profitable? How do I reduce expenses, increase profits, build my brand, build my business so that eventually I can sell it and retire? Um, it, that was kind of elusive. How do folks? I guess maybe if they're looking for customers, they've got this business. What are some strategies for customer acquisition? Because sometimes that's the hardest part. Maybe they got a few little customers here and there, but they really, need more customers to get growth.
Yeah, yeah. A couple ways, right? You can, and I learned some of these even more recent ways, right, through Epic. But even just acquiring media, right? So who has
Mm-hmm.
your customers already, and where are they? So that's always the number one question. Like, okay, who has my customers? Where are they? And can we strategically partner with them in some way, shape, or form, right? And again, it depends on what the offer is, right? If we're selling a small, low, I'm going to call it low ticket item, right? Then our process may be a little bit different. But it's still, who has my customers and where are my customers? Because you can do a couple of things. I can buy email list, right? I can buy the list of, like, anyone, frankly, but we want to buy the list of who's already serving our customers. I can acquire media, where essentially are my customers hanging out. If it's a bakery, right, maybe they're learning about desserts, maybe they're spending time, like communing, like watching. I have two girls, right? They love to watch, the desserts being made on social, right? They love it. And then, right, then they will say, "Oh gosh, can we DoorDash crumble cookies?" That's a local like cookie here in Arizona, right? That everyone loves, right?
I just
Um,
had one.
Okay, you just had one. But the parallel, like my girls, they sit there and they watch, they're in high school and middle school. They watch recipes, right? And then once they watch recipes, then guess what they do? Then in turn, they will think, oh, okay, where can I DoorDash something in? So we just have to think like, where are they at? What are they already doing, right? And then how can I get them there, right? So for example, if it's birthdays, if it's partnerships, if it's D2C, so we have to think, is it direct to consumer? We have to think, are we doing B2B? What are we doing here, and how do we want to do it, and where are we most effective? And then once we have, some sales, then we want to work to define that customer journey strategy, right? Once we have some sales, right? Because then we have proof. We have proof that there's, product market fit. We have proof that customers like us, right? So whether we're selling, I'm just going to use the bakery because you said that. If I have a bakery, right, and depending on, is this going to be a lifestyle business? That would be my first question. All right, do I want this lifestyle business for me and my family, and then I'm going to be happy with that? Am I trying to grow this business, so that way I can open up franchises, right, and expand, wherever, right? Do I want to, kind of own them and expand? So what really are my goals that I have for this? And then
Hmm.
once I have that answer, then I'm doing data to kind of figure out, okay, where are my margins going to be the best, right? And then based off of that, then I'll do typically, a couple different strategies. I'll probably have a D2C if I decided I want retail, because that's the other thing, right? Are we doing, direct to consumer
Right.
retail? Are we doing not direct to consumer? Are we not doing direct to consumer? So depending on the alignment of values, right? Because I think that's so important, right? That's how I'm making decisions now. With
Hmm.
me now, kind of in my 40s, I'm thinking, when I make decisions, Michael, I'm thinking like, okay, is this something that I want to be doing, all of my 40s, all of my fit, right? Is this strategy that I'm really implementing something that I want to do, this decade, the next decade? I'm thinking more of like that now. And then once I'm clear on my own values and what I want, then I decide if the model aligns with those values. So I think that that's really important. I think for all of us, and me included, right? It's really getting clear on what we want. And then,
Hmm.
right, getting that clarity of, okay, here's what we want. And then and here's the kind of life that we want to live, right? So it's values, it's lifestyle. And then once we get clear on those things, then those things help us to make our business decisions. And again, I know I keep saying this, but The physical world, it does model. We have to think about where do we want to be physically, and then that even affects our business too and our business decisions. So I think that that's really important, right? So for example, the reason why when I, first started being an entrepreneur, the reason why I decided to go into the digital strategy, right, is because I needed to have a flexible schedule, with the
Hmm.
children, right? Because we were
Hmm.
now sharing the kids.
Yep.
And so I decided to particularly stay focused on the digital strategy. Now that doesn't really, even though I love tech and I've got a computer science background, I'm high EQ. So, I'm behind, over the years, not as much anymore, but over the years, I've been behind two massive computers all day with a virtual internet, with a virtual domestic team, and then some international, right? And it served me well, right? My sister works for Slalom, a global tech consulting company, right? She's behind two massive computers all day as well. So when you're in the digital world, it serves you well. She's got
Hmm.
two children. It does serve you well. They're getting older, right? So now I'm okay. It's time for me to come out, because they're getting older. But again, my physical world, it even affected my business decisions, and it affects it, really even now. Like they're at an age where it's like, okay, I'm ready to help, I'm ready to give back, and I'm ready to, kind of be in front. Versus before, I had to channel energy in a different direction, still kind of reach my goals, but taper them. And then
Hmm.
now, I'm able to, kind of have more. Let's see, how can I say this in a correct way? I'm able to, really think about some of the things that I want to do. That's a better way of saying it now. So,
I love it. I mean, you kind of what it's for those of you who know I take tons of notes, right, as my guests are talking. And one of the things that I love is you talked about the customer. You didn't talk about selling them something. You talked about understanding them, and then you talked about the owner or the leadership. Um, and then you drew like the parallels between those two, and where those two meet is really where you spent the time focusing, right?
yeah.
Like they might want product X, they might want auto repair, and you're like, I don't really want to do auto repair, right? Like I'm not doing that. And so they're not aligned. I mean, if I were to draw, I'm trying to think, remember the term for those circles, right, where they're not mutually exclusive, but they're touching, right? I mean, that's really where the magic happens. Where customers are receptive. You talked about the journey map, the customer journey maps. I mean, so much important stuff that I just think when people either open a business or buy a business or are leading a business, right? Maybe you're just in a leadership role, hired in a business, and you're like, okay, here I am. You got a lay of the land. What do I do? Oftentimes that stuff is just either you don't have time for it, you've never done it before, or you could use help doing it, right? Someone just to guide you down a process and go, okay, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. I tell people sometimes consulting, uh, it isn't like we know more than you. We just manage you down a path, right? You give us money, and essentially we give you project management, and we make you move down a path to a result that you probably would have gotten to yourself just a heck of a lot longer down a path than perhaps we could have. What I love about kind of about your slant, which really got me interested, was was the tech aspect, right? I mean, I talked to a lot of marketers, and they're like, "We have a proven marketing strategy," and I'm like, "Okay, that's important,"
Mm.
um, but they're missing kind of the tech aspect of it, right? Um, Talk to me a little bit about some of the work you've done with the technology aspect in
Yeah.
helping customers.
Yeah. So, no, that's really good, right? Because all of us have followed and walked different paths, right? So, my 10,000 hours, if you will, you know that book as well. But, my time, right, has been spent, focused on, tech, growing with scalable marketing, right, and investing. Those are my three. I've spent my 10,000 hours there, right, if you will, like my working career. So, but then somebody that we may help, right, has spent their 10,000 hours, like my sister and my dad, right, architecting, large data software systems and leading it, right? They have spent their time doing that. I took the business and the entrepreneurial investing route. They stayed, on the technical side. So it's not that, I just think that when we come together, we're able to share that experience of, like I said, had I not lost all of that money, I wouldn't have been so passionate about figuring something out, right? And I would never say that there is this hard, fast strategy that you can follow on anything. I would never say that, right? For any product, because the truth of the matter is you have to start by really doing research and figuring out, okay, who am I talking to? How can I serve them? What value can I give to them? Right. And then I'm also going to study, my corresponding partners who are already in the space. And I'm going to figure out what they're doing that's already been really, really successful. Right. So have they launched, typically if we're doing B2B, we'll probably launch a LinkedIn engine, or we'll acquire like an email list, right? That's very straightforward if we're targeting businesses or serving businesses. If it's a consumer product or a software product, right? And we're not targeting a business, if we're targeting direct to consumer, then we would handle that in a different way. But that really starts with all of them. It starts by understanding what you said, who we're speaking to and how are we going to help them? Because we have to be able to get their attention coldly, right? We have to be able to get their attention coldly. There has to be something that gets their attention coldly. And you do that because you're speaking their language. You're speaking their language. That's so important, right? We have to be speaking their language, right? If there's a language conflict, then they're not going to hear our messaging, or they're not going to understand, or they're not going to what are they talking about here? Right. Have we figured out that their number one pain point is saving time? Have we figured out that their number one pain point, right, is, making sure that, they're able to have the resources to do what they need to do? Are we speaking their language, right? Do we know that they really aspire, to, exit and have this luxurious lifestyle, right? Whatever it is, are we communicating in a language that they understand, right? And that's really important. And so whether we're using tech or not, we have to first fundamentally be speaking the language that they understand. And we research that using data and technology. So we research that, like what I was saying, that my team will do a lot of that research and scour and aggregate, right? All of these things. I mean, they can tell me so much, and I used to do it, but I don't do it anymore. They just kind of give me the reports. But I mean, we can tell you all about your customers, and we can tell you all about, the things that they want and that they like and that they dislike. And like I said, all of those little things about them. And then you can craft offer statements. And then it's like developing software. It's so similar. It's when you code, it's if, then, else. That's the basic construct of a programming language, right? So we're split testing, right? So if they accept this, right, then we do this. Else we do, like for your tech people that are listening, that's a basic construct when we're coding, right? Setting our variables, and then, kind of coming up with our flow. It's very similar. We say, oh, okay, how did this offer go? Let's test this. We believe that this has, this high degree of success. And then we're also going to split test this. And then we're going to watch them on our site, and we're going to see what they're doing and where they're going. And then we're going to measure it, right? So we're going to watch all of that. And then, if we're doing an outreach, right, and let's say we've acquired somebody's email list. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. We're going to watch, right? So maybe we will construct, a couple, 3 to 5, whatever. We're going to construct a couple of outreach emails, and then we're going to watch what converts, right? Because in that email, maybe it's an advertorial, if it's a consumer product, right? maybe, it's, whatever, however we're getting them from click here, onto here, there's a flow diagram, just like in coding. We're going to watch all of that. And that's going to be a data driven process throughout the entire process. But again, physically, we're going to take that data, and then we're going to infuse some of our emotional high EQ right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there we're going to construct our offer statement, which is going to address all of those things: hopes, beliefs, pain points, desires, goals, their lifestyle. What we're going to construct, and they're going to feel like we're talking to Michael or talking to Tanea, right? They're going to believe that that letter's for them. So that's how you infuse data in your marketing. So scouring what they're scouring and getting so clear on the customer avatar. And then B, right? Then we're scouring and we're getting really clear on our competitors, right? And what outreach is working? How are they working? Is this working? How are they? What are their customers saying? Oh, we like that. Oh, that worked out well for them, right? And then, we develop, kind of SWOT analyses around those types of things. And that's how we can use the data. And then we build our flow diagram, which is the
Mm-hmm.
construct basis, which is a computer program. And I mean, things are so beautiful now. I mean, you can use artificial intelligence in your copy, you can use AI in your data. I mean, like I said, since those old investing days, I mean, you can just, really craft really nice scalable predictability, in a really nice way that we couldn't, 9 years ago. So
Yep. I love
yeah.
it. When I get, I especially love, when somebody hasn't taken the time to go down the journey that you're talking about, right? And they send me an email. I especially love when they can't even handle a mail merge, right? And it'll be somebody else's name or something, in the email to me, and I'm just like, wow, yeah, I wanna click on this and talk to you guys because you can't even do a mail merge, right? Like that makes me real confident about your company. So often I think people they understand the value of communicating. They don't get help. They try to do it on their own, or they hire interns, or and there's nothing wrong with interns, right? We use them. I love my interns. um, but right, they're not pros. They're not seasoned, right? They're kind of go to the fridge, get the box kind of folks. You say go create an email merge and send an email, and they don't think like, is this the right email? Is this the right message for that person? Is this the right time to send the email? I love when people send me emails at 2 in the morning, and I'm just like, I automatically delete emails received after 7 p.m. and before 8 a.m., right? You don't even know what time zone I'm on. I don't even need to pay attention. I just have a rule that sweeps all those into a junk folder, right? Because my bank isn't sending me emails at 2 in the morning. Anything that's important isn't sending me emails at the off hours. If you're crazy enough to send me an email in the off hours, hey, you're auto swept. Have fun with that. So, so much of what you talked about, though, I keep going back to like the customer. If I listen to everything that we're talking about, you're really sure you're about technology, sure you're about marketing, sure you're about, but you're really about the customer, which is cool, right? Because it's not about like the fancy widget or a proven system or follow the 12 steps to instant success and you'll have $100,000 in your bank account next week. um, it's really about if I had to summarize it, I'd say it's about a relationship, right, between a firm that you trust and the people at the firm that you trust, that listen to you, that help you understand, that partner with you, and then essentially you co-craft, right, a plan and a strategy, right? We're back to digital strategy. All along we've been talking about customer. um, it's just really cool. It's almost different, right? I mean, it's not different, but it is different, just because your approach is different, because it's all about the customer and the company that you're helping. Um, some of these folks, right? They get I don't want to say afraid because that has such a negative connotation, right? It's May is Mental Health Month, by the way. So it's okay if you're afraid, right? Fear is an appropriate emotion. It's easy to be overwhelmed. So my public service announcement there. And the only thing I can tell you to help disarm that, right, is to reach out and talk to somebody. Almost any of my guests, you know, or myself, right? If you reach out and go, "Hey, I don't understand. I'm stuck. Could you help?" Almost any of them at no charge would be like, "Hey, this is what I would do," or they'd at least talk to you, right? So many people get paralyzed. They're like, "I don't know what to do," and then they do something wrong, or they waste money, or they make misguided adventures, or they're sold a bunch of crap by vendors. Software vendors are not good people, by the way. They're not your friends. They just want to push software licenses. So before you buy software licenses from a vendor, talk to somebody who will guide you and help you understand, is that the right purchase? Is that the right technology? Have a plan before you buy technology, please. I can't tell you the millions of dollars I have helped companies save by not buying a bunch of garbage from vendors that just want to push licenses when it was totally the wrong product for their needs. So I guess how do folks get past this fear, right, where they get kind of paralyzed and they're like, I don't know what to do to help my business get to the next level.
Well, fear, I remember someone shared this with me years ago. It's the number one thing that kind of cripples, frankly, all of us, right? It's the number one thing that can make all of us kind of buckle. And so the question is how do we get past it? Right. And so the way that we do that, and I know, and I just kind of did some steps on it. What really helps me is to, number one, think about where I want to be long term, and how I really want to see that life that for myself and my family, even long term. Because if you're thinking about the long term aspect of it, then you're focusing on kind of creating this schedule and this plan for yourself and goals. And then every day you're really kind of executing on that, right? And are we moving in the right direction? Are we not moving in the right direction? So that's definitely one way that helps, right? Because it kind of pushes you outside your comfort zone, right? So the question really is, and this is to all your listeners, right, is what do you see yourself doing 5 years from now and 10 years from now? Like, what does that really, really look like? And let's get clear on that. And then once we're clear on that, meaning clarity on that without the fear, right? So if I could take the fear away, what does that life look like for you 5 years from now, 10 years from now? No fear. What does it really look like? And then if we know that, right, like in the perfect world, then we say, okay, I'm going to push past that, because that's I mean, I can't even tell you how important that is. I'm going to push past that, and then I'm going to go for it. I'm going to find a mentor or somebody who's walked these steps. I'm going to work with them, work under, however you do it, right? I'm going to take their class, I'm going to take whatever, I'm going to work under them, and I'm going to put together my plan so that I can be there. And it doesn't matter if it's something you've been doing for 20 years. I don't care. Like you could be, like I'll use my family as an example, because they love me no matter what. But, you could be designing complex aeronautical software, for 30 years, 35. It does, I don't care, and you could working for major corps, right? Like Honeywell, and I don't care. Never too late, right? And then if that's not where you want to be 5 years from now, well, let's put together a plan and think about where do you want to be 5 years from now and 10 years from now? And what does that look like for you? And then once we're clear there, we have a mentor to guide us, or, we bought a course or whatever, we put processes and steps along the way, somebody to kind of shortcut us to where we want to be. And we've got those steps along the way. Well, then we're excited, right? So then it's the fear, right? It's, oh my gosh, I may lose my Intel job that I've had for 30 years, right? Then we're excited. We're excited about our life because we are really truly living the way that we want to live in our optimal state, what we've architected for ourselves. So the fear gets to be replaced, and the fear is replaced by, oh, okay, we're working our plan, daily, right? So I think that's also important. And then the other thing that I do is I only focus on what I can control, right? So business, it may go, it can be unpredictable, right? It can be, but we can control our personal lives, right? So I try to make sure that I keep personal life free of drama, right? Because the predictive business, well, I happen to think that that's, can be fun, right? And then I focus on things I can control, right? So whatever's going on in the world, right? If I can't control it, I don't focus there. I focus my efforts and energy on thinking, where do I want to be in 5 years? What does that look like? And I'm going to architect my personal and professional life to make sure it meets there. And if we're living that way, then that fear gets replaced with excitement and looking forward, and like it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, this aligns with what I want and my values align with it. I'm gonna go for it. I think that's really important. I really, really do.
I love it, right? So many folks get stuck in the swirl of, we might go to a world war. It's like, you can't control that, right? Like, you have to trust the elected leaders. You have to trust the universe. You have to have faith. You have to believe, but you can't like fret yourself to death about it, right? You get paralyzed by all of that. I love what you said, right? Focus on what you can control, essentially in alignment of your goals. Um, that's just such a cool tip to break you past that, right? And then once you get a little success, right? Even the smallest success, I always say these small successes, right? That creates momentum. And now you're past the fear, and now you're moving. Now you're like, ooh, I don't know what I was afraid of. This is really pretty cool. Ooh, I got another win. Ooh, this is great. Ooh, I got positive affirmation. Ooh, and there's going to be haters, right? There's always going to be haters. Haters are going to hate. Let them hate, right? Let them hate while you're successful, right? And successful doesn't necessarily mean the most money or fancy cars, right? Success could be the freedom of time to spend with your family, creating a lifestyle. I loved your story, right? You created a lifestyle sort of out of necessity, but with a focus on your family. It wasn't like, oh, I've got to go out and make all this money. It was, how do I create something that allows me to be present for my kids? Um, so many pearls of wisdom, both technology. We talked a little bit about technology. We talked about marketing. We talked about customers, and an intense focus on the customer and on the leader or the business owner, and how those two come together to create kind of a path, right, where you can be successful, whether you're selling a service or hosting a product or selling a product. So cool. I do want to point out that the company is axismeta.co, not .com, .co. Link will be in down below, as well as all of um, Tanaya's information. So cool. Thank you for taking the time and joining us here on the podcast. We
Thank
just
you.
talked about such a swirl of coolness. We were all over the place. I love your personal story. I love the tech. I love the marketing and such. There's cool stuff out on the website too. I see that you also do workshops and such. There's cool stuff to definitely go check out. Crawl all over the website. She's a fellow Arizonan, which is also very cool, located up in North Scottsdale. So those of you in the Arizona area can look her up there as well. So again, thank you. Thank you for what you do to help companies, to help people, to inspire with your story, and for taking the time to be with us here on the podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure, 100%. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me today.
Awesome.